He abandoned me and our kids. 8 years later, a stray dog led him back to the truth. Subscribe to our channel and share this video with someone who needs to be reminded that a true father isn't the one who shows up, but the one who stays. Leave a comment below and tell us which city you're from. He has Leo's eyes, Mom. Ellie's voice was a whisper, but it froze me to the core. The drawing in her hand trembled, but it was my heart that felt like it was about to collapse. The man I had spent 8 years trying to forget had just held my daughter in his arms and didn't recognize his own reflection in her. Leo Alexander had it all. Power, a multi-million-dollar company, a perfect fiancé, but no true love. Until a stray dog led him to a small-town vet clinic and a reunion that would tear them both apart. Across the examination table was the woman he had judged, abandoned, and never forgiven. In her green eyes was the truth he refused to see. Twin children who bore his name, even without being on the birth certificate. Now, between a past built on lies and a present demanding to be made right, Leo must prove that a real father isn't the one who shows up, but the one who stays. This story will give you goosebumps and remind you that the wounds of pride can only be healed with courage and love. The sky over New York City was heavy that morning in June. Gray clouds drifted over the skyscrapers like a silent omen as the city woke to its usual frantic rhythm. Leo Alexander watched the metropolis through the panoramic window of his penthouse. At 35, he was the personification of success. An athletic body sculpted by rigorous training, perfectly styled blonde hair, and a penetrating gaze that intimidated any opponent at a negotiation table. His steady hands held a cup of coffee as his thoughts drifted. "Mr. Alexander, Ms. Jessica called again. Would you like to call her back?" His assistant's voice over the intercom cut through his reflections. "Tell her I'll call her back later, Elena. I have the meeting with the Arab investors in 20 minutes. Leo adjusted his Italian silk tie in front of the mirror. His reflection showed a man who seemed to have everything. Heir to the Alexander Empire, responsible for transforming the family's traditional construction company into a hotel conglomerate that spanned 3 continents. Forbes had listed him as one of the country's most promising entrepreneurs. What no one saw was the persistent emptiness in his chest, a constant echo that even the applause at his conferences couldn't silence. His phone vibrated. Jessica Sterling, his fiancée of 8 months, had sent another message about the wedding preparations. "We need to confirm the dinner menu today, honey. The planner's deadline is tomorrow." He took a deep, unenthusiastic breath. The wedding, scheduled for 3 months from now, felt more like a business contract than the realization of a dream. Jessica was beautiful, influential, the daughter of a senator, and she knew everyone in the social circle that mattered. Their marriage was already featured in the society columns as the event of the year. They were the ideal couple. On paper, sitting in his black Mercedes on the way to the meeting, Leo wondered, not for the first time, why he didn't feel the joy everyone expected from a groom. Why the idea of a life with Jessica seemed so empty. His driver interrupted his thoughts. "Sir, there's an accident on the main avenue. I suggest taking the alternative route through the Lower East Side." Leo nodded absent-mindedly, returning to the documents on his tablet. He didn't care about the route, as long as he arrived on time. What he didn't know was that this detour would completely change the course of his life. Across town, Clara Mendez woke to the blaring sound of her alarm clock at 5:30 in the morning. At 28, she already had more responsibilities than many would face in a lifetime. She stretched quickly and pushed the red hair out of her green eyes. The small 2-bedroom apartment in the Lower East Side was nothing fancy, but it was clean, cozy, and most of all, hard-earned. "Mom, Leo took my backpack again!" Ellie's voice came from the next room, followed by the sound of hurried footsteps and children's laughter. "I didn't take it. I was just checking if my drawing was still there," Leo defended, appearing at his mom's bedroom door with his blonde hair mussed and bright blue eyes sparkling with mischief. Clara smiled, her heart warming as it always did when she looked at her 8-year-old twins. Two peas in a pod, with golden curls and clear eyes that weren't from her. No, those features belonged to someone she had been trying, unsuccessfully, to forget for almost 9 years. "Come on, little hurricanes, we have a very busy day. The first one who's ready gets to choose the movie on Saturday." The morning routine was a well-rehearsed choreography. Prepare a nutritious but economical breakfast, check backpacks, comb hair, brush teeth, and feed the kids' inseparable companions. Luna, Ellie's white dog, and Kit Kat, Leo's orange tabby cat. While packing lunches, Clara mentally reviewed her schedule for the day. Drop the kids off at school at 7:30, open the vet clinic at 8:00, see scheduled patients, pick up the kids at 5:30, make dinner, and, if she was lucky, manage to check the accounts before bed. "Mom, why don't we have a dad like everyone else?" Ellie's sudden question, as she ate her toast, hit Clara like a punch to the stomach. It wasn't the first time the question had come up, but it never got easier. "You do have a dad, my love. It's just that sometimes people take different paths," she answered softly, choosing her words carefully. "The important thing is that we have each other, right? We're a family." "But John from my class said a real family has a dad," Leo insisted with that relentless honesty children have. Clara knelt down, getting to her children's eye level. "There are many kinds of families, my little one. Some have a mom and a dad. Others, just a mom. Others, just a dad. Some have 2 moms or 2 dads. What makes a real family is love, not who lives in the house." The kids seemed to accept the explanation, but Clara knew the topic would come up again, more and more frequently as they got older. And each time, the weight of the secret she was keeping grew heavier on her shoulders. At 8:15, Clara opened the doors of her small vet clinic. Happy Paws wasn't big or fancy, but it represented the realization of a dream she had put off for years. With a loan and a lot of determination, she had managed to open it just 6 months ago, after years of working as an assistant in other clinics to support her children. "Good morning, Mrs. Davis. How is Buddy?" She greeted her first client of the day, an older lady who had brought her poodle for its monthly checkup. The clinic only had 2 examination rooms, a small pharmacy, and a waiting area. But Clara kept it spotless. The walls were painted in soft shades of green and decorated with photos of animals. A graduation picture hung discreetly behind the counter. Clara Mendez, Doctor of Veterinary Medicine, a late achievement for someone who had to interrupt her studies, go back at night, and graduate at 26 while raising 2 children on her own. The morning passed quietly with routine checkups. On her lunch break, Clara took the opportunity to organize the stock of medicines and check the accounts. The numbers were tight, but stable. If she could keep up the pace of clients, maybe in a few months, she could start paying off the loan and even think about hiring an assistant. The phone rang, interrupting her calculations. "Happy Paws, good morning." "Clara? This is the school coordinator." The voice on the other end sounded worried. "Leo has a fever. I think it's best if you come pick him up." Clara's heart sank. Leo rarely got sick, which made any symptom a cause for alarm. Canceling meant losing income she couldn't afford to throw away. But her children would always come first. "I'm on my way," she replied, already grabbing her keys and phone to call clients and reschedule appointments. Leo left his meeting with the investors with a satisfied smile. The deal for the construction of the new resort in Cabo San Lucas was practically closed, another victory to add to his impeccable resume. He checked his watch. It was after 3 in the afternoon, and he still hadn't eaten lunch. He sent a message to his driver. asking him to wait at the building entrance in 15 minutes. As he went down in the elevator, his phone rang again. It was Jessica. "Alex, darling, you didn't call me back." Her voice had that slightly reproachful tone he knew so well. "I'm sorry, Jess. The meeting ran longer than expected. We need to finalize the chapel's decoration today. We've already rescheduled with the decorator twice." Leo took a deep breath. "You can choose whatever you think is best. I trust your good taste. But darling, it's our wedding. I need your opinion." "Jessica, I'm exhausted. Let's talk about this at home, okay?" The silence on the other end of the line showed her displeasure. Leo knew he had another argument ahead of him. In recent months, it seemed that any matter related to the wedding created tension between them. When he left the building, he found his driver waiting for him. "To the apartment, Ricardo?" "Yes, sir." As the car glided through traffic, Leo loosened his tie and closed his eyes for a moment. The truth he was trying to deny himself came to light in moments like this. He was about to marry a woman he didn't love. Marriage to Jessica represented an alliance between families, an impeccable business and social move. His father would have approved. But there were moments like this one when he wondered if he wasn't just following a script written by others. The car braked sharply, jolting him out of his reverie. "I'm sorry, sir," Ricardo said. "A cat ran across the street." Leo nodded, looking out the window again. It was then that his eyes caught a scene that, for some inexplicable reason, drew his attention. A red-haired woman rushing out of a small establishment with a Happy Paws sign. She was carrying a heavy bag on her shoulder and running as if the world depended on her haste. There was something about her, her determined posture, the fiery hair dancing in the wind, that stirred a strange feeling in his chest, a feeling of familiarity, as if he knew her from somewhere. "Sir," the driver's voice brought him back to reality. "Shall we continue?" Leo nodded, pushing the unsettling feeling away. It was probably just fatigue. After all, redheads weren't that rare, and New York City was too big for meaningful coincidences. Clara ran toward the school, her heart in her throat. Leo rarely got sick, which made any symptom a cause for alarm. She found the boy sitting in the nurse's office, his face flushed and his eyes slightly wet. "My little one, what happened?" she asked, touching his forehead. He was warm, but not alarmingly so. "My throat hurts, Mom," the boy murmured, his voice clearly hoarse. After talking to the nurse and signing the release form, Clara took Leo home. On the way, she called her neighbor, Mrs. Chayo, who often helped her with the children in emergencies. "Of course I can stay with him, dear," the 65-year-old woman replied, who treated the twins like her own grandchildren. "I'll make him a special herbal tea from my home country that fixes any sore throat in a flash." With Leo settled on Mrs. Chayo's living room sofa, covered with a blanket and with Kit Kat purring beside him, Clara rushed back to the clinic. There was one appointment she hadn't been able to reschedule, a new client who had insisted it was urgent. Upon arriving, she found Rosa, the cleaning assistant who came 3 times a week, trying to calm a tall, well-dressed man who seemed agitated. "Thank God you're here, Dr. Mendez," Rosa said, visibly relieved. "The gentleman here arrived with an emergency." Clara looked at the man and immediately noticed the small bundle in his arms. It seemed to be a puppy wrapped in an expensive shirt that had bloodstains on it. "Please help me," he said, with genuine urgency in his voice. "I found this little dog hit by a car on the road. She's breathing, but bring her in," Clara instructed, immediately going into professional mode despite the chaotic day. "Rosa, prepare the procedure room." Minutes later, Clara carefully examined the small white puppy, who couldn't have been more than 4 months old. She had a visibly broken back leg and some cuts, but the most significant damage appeared to be a laceration on her abdomen that was bleeding heavily. "She'll need stitches, and her leg is fractured," she explained to the man, who watched with obvious concern. "I'll need to lightly sedate her to perform the procedure. Do you know her? Are you the owner? He shook his head. No, I was coming back from a meeting and I saw her on the side of the road. I couldn't just leave her there. Clara nodded, impressed by the gesture. Not everyone would stop to help an injured animal, especially someone who, by his appearance and the car she had seen parked on the street, clearly belonged to a world very distant from hers. That was a noble gesture, she commented, preparing the materials. I'll do everything I can for her. The procedure may take about an hour. You can wait or leave a contact so we can inform you afterward. I'll wait, he replied promptly. While working on the small patient, Clara occasionally glanced at the man waiting in the reception room, visible through the ajar door. There was something unsettlingly familiar about him. The straight posture, the defined profile, the way he ran his hand through his blonde hair when he seemed impatient. But New York City was too big for coincidences, and blonde businessmen weren't exactly rare. An hour later, Clara came out with the puppy, who was now clean, medicated, and with her leg immobilized. She's going to be fine, she announced, handing the small patient, who was sleeping peacefully under the effect of the light sedation. The fracture wasn't complex. I managed to realign the bone. The stitches on her abdomen will need to be removed in 10 days. The man received the puppy with surprising care for someone with such large hands. How much do I owe you? He asked, taking his wallet from the inside pocket of his jacket. Clara hesitated. Normally, a procedure like that, with medication, sutures, and fracture treatment, would cost a considerable sum. But there was something about the scene, an obviously rich man worrying about an abandoned street dog, that moved her. $300 covers the materials and medications, she replied, significantly reducing the usual price. He raised his eyebrows, clearly aware that the price was well below market value. Without arguing, he handed her a black credit card. You were very kind, doctor, he said, as Clara processed the payment. I don't have experience with animals. What should I do with her now? The question took Clara by surprise. Do you plan to keep her? He seemed as surprised as she was by his own question. I hadn't thought about it. I live in an apartment. I work all day. I can arrange for her adoption once she's recovered, Clara offered. We have an agreement with some reliable shelters. He looked at the sleeping puppy in his arms, and for a moment his severe face softened. No, I think I'll keep her. It seems she chose me somehow. Clara smiled, handing him a small bag with medications and care instructions. Then she'll need a name. Aurora, he replied almost immediately. Her fur is white like the first light of dawn. Something about the way he said it, an unexpected poetry from someone with such a corporate appearance, deeply moved Clara. It was when he reached for the receipt that their fingers briefly touched. An electric current seemed to run down Clara's spine, and she pulled her hand back quickly, as if she had touched fire. He also seemed to feel something, as his blue eyes locked onto hers with a disturbing intensity. For an instant, time seemed to freeze. He began, but was interrupted by the sound of his cell phone. He checked the screen quickly. I have to go. Thank you, doctor. Mendez, she completed automatically. Clara Mendez. Leo. Something strange crossed his face. A shadow of recognition, perhaps, but it disappeared so quickly she thought she had imagined it. Leo Alexander. He introduced himself, shifting the little Aurora to one arm to hand over a business card with the other. If you need anything. The name hit Clara like a bolt of lightning. Her legs suddenly weakened, and she had to lean on the counter to keep from swaying. Leo Alexander. The man she had spent 8 years trying to forget. The man who had broken her heart. The father of her children. He hadn't recognized her. How could he? The Clara of 8 years ago was a 20-year-old student with longer hair, a younger face, a body not yet marked by motherhood. And he, apparently, had become exactly what he had always promised. A powerful, rich, successful man. Only his eyes remained the same, blue as the summer sky, now fixed on her with a confused expression. "Is everything all right, Dr. Mendez?" Clara forced herself to smile, regaining her composure with superhuman effort. "Yes, just tired. Long day." He nodded, still watching her curiously. "I'll be back in 10 days for the stitches then, and bring Aurora for an evaluation in 3 days, just to check the healing." When the door closed behind him, Clara collapsed into the chair, trembling. After 8 years, destiny had put Leo Alexander back in her path. The father her children never knew. The man who had abandoned her without explanation, without a chance to defend herself. And he hadn't even recognized her. Clara barely slept that night. The image of Leo Alexander with the little Aurora in his arms replayed in her mind like a broken film. The same man who had made her cry for nights on end, who had disappeared from her life without giving her a chance to explain, was now back as a client in her clinic. The irony of fate had a bitter taste. Next to her bed, a picture frame held the only photo she had kept of him, hidden behind a picture of the twins on their 6th birthday. An old photograph taken on the beach when they were just 2 young lovers, with dreams bigger than the world, before everything fell apart. "Mom, it's time to get up." Leo's voice interrupted her thoughts. Ellie, now recovered from her fleeting fever, ran down the hall with Kit Kat chasing him. Looking at her children, Clara felt her heart clench. The blonde hair, the piercing blue eyes, the shape of his chin. It was like seeing miniature versions of Leo. How had he not noticed the similarity? Or maybe he had noticed something, and that would explain his confused look when he said goodbye. "Come on, little ones. Breakfast is on the table." During breakfast, Clara watched the twins with new eyes. For 8 years, she had kept the secret of their father's identity. When they were little, the questions were vague and easily sidestepped. But now, at 8, their curiosity was growing. And with Leo back in the city, seemingly not recognizing her, what should she do? "Mom, can Luna go to school today? It's bring your pet to school day," Ellie asked, interrupting her thoughts. "No, honey. Luna has to stay home today, but I promise she can go next time." The walk to school was filled with the children's lively stories, but Clara's mind wandered. What if Leo discovered the truth? What if he wanted to be a part of the twins' lives? Or, worse, what if he rejected them all over again? Across town, Leo woke up restless. There was something about the red-haired vet that had deeply disturbed him. A sense of déjà vu, as if he knew her from somewhere. Sitting on the edge of the bed, he watched the little Aurora sleeping in the basket he had improvised. The puppy was breathing calmly, her bandaged paw resting on the soft fabric. His phone vibrated. A message from Jessica. "Good morning, honey. Reminder, dinner with my parents tonight at 8. Don't be late. Love you." Leo sighed. Dinner with the future in-laws. Another occasion where he would have to feign enthusiasm for the wedding preparations. Listen to Senator Sterling talk about his political connections, and endure his mother-in-law's approving looks every time Jessica mentioned grandchildren. He checked his schedule on his tablet. 3 important meetings, a lunch with investors, and a video conference with the Dubai office. There was no time to take Aurora to the vet as recommended. He would have to send his assistant. But something inside him resisted the idea. There was something about that clinic, about that woman with green eyes and fiery hair, that drew him in an inexplicable way. Mid-afternoon, Clara was finishing with an elderly cat when Rosa, her receptionist, knocked on the door. "Doctor, the man with the white puppy is here again." Clara's heart raced. It had been 3 days since their first encounter, and she hadn't expected Leo to come personally. He would probably send an assistant. She took a deep breath, adjusted her lab coat, and entered the waiting room with the most professional expression she could muster. "Mr. Alexander, what a surprise." Leo was standing, carefully holding Aurora in his arms. He wore an impeccable dark suit, a stark contrast to the informality of the small clinic. "Dr. Mendez," he greeted her with a nod of his head. "I hope I'm not interrupting." "Not at all. Please come with me." In the examination room, Clara tried to stay focused on the small patient, avoiding eye contact with Leo as much as possible. She examined the stitches, checked the immobilized paw, and noted with satisfaction that the recovery was on track. "She's eating well?" she asked, maintaining a professional tone. "Yes, surprisingly well for such a small thing," he replied, and there was a trace of affection in his voice that Clara hadn't expected. "I think she's enjoying the life of luxury. Dogs are adaptable," Clara commented with a slight smile. "They just need security and affection. The rest is details." As she spoke, her fingers worked delicately, checking the stitches on the puppy's abdomen. It was then that she noticed Leo was watching her intensely. "Is something wrong?" she asked, feeling her discomfort grow. "Excuse my indiscretion, Dr. Mendez, but do I know you from somewhere? I have the impression." Clara's heart stopped. So he felt something familiar, but he couldn't place it. Part of her wanted to scream the truth, to throw the 8 years of abandonment in his face. Another part, the one that had protected her children for so long, wanted to maintain her distance. "New York is a big city, Mr. Alexander. I doubt our paths have crossed before." He continued to observe her as if trying to fit together pieces of a puzzle. "Maybe you're right," he finally conceded. "I have a good memory for faces. Yours just seems familiar." Clara looked away, returning her attention to Aurora. "The healing is perfect. We can remove the stitches in a week." As she finished the exam, the door to the examination room opened suddenly, and Ellie ran in. "Mom, look what I made in art class today." Clara froze. The children. She had forgotten that Mrs. Chayo would bring them after school. Normally, they waited in the small back room until she was finished, but Ellie, always impulsive, had clearly decided to ignore the rules. Leo turned to the little intruder, and Clara saw the exact moment his eyes landed on the girl. The shock was visible. He literally took a step back as if he had been physically hit. Ellie, oblivious to the tension, came closer with her drawing. "Look, Mom, I drew Luna and Kit Kat together in the park." It was then that Leo appeared at the door looking for his sister. "Ellie, Mom's working. You can't just come in here." The boy's words hung in the air when he saw the stranger in the room. Now Leo was looking from one to the other, his face as pale as paper. It was impossible not to see the resemblance, the same blue eyes, the same blonde hair, the same features he saw in the mirror every morning, now reflected in two small faces that looked at him with curiosity. "Are they your children?" His voice came out choked. Clara felt the world crumble around her. This wasn't how she had planned it. Not so sudden, not so raw. "Yes," she replied, her throat dry. "Ellie, Leo, this is Mr. Alexander, Aurora's owner." Leo, always the more observant, looked at the puppy and then at the tall man. With an analytical expression that was so similar to Leo's, it hurt. "She's pretty," the boy said, approaching cautiously to look at the animal. "Can I pet her?" Leo, still visibly stunned, just nodded. As Leo gently stroked the puppy's head, Leo couldn't take his eyes off him, as if he were seeing a ghost. "How old are they?" he finally asked in a low voice. 8, Clara replied, feeling her heart pound in her chest. 8 years. The math was simple. Exactly the time since he had left her. "Kids," Clara called, keeping her voice firm despite the internal turmoil. "Why don't you go to Mrs. Chayo in the back room? I have a patient to finish with." The twins obeyed, but not before Ellie smiled radiantly at Leo. Your puppy is beautiful. She looks like a cotton ball." When the door closed behind the children, the silence in the room was dense enough to cut with a knife. Leo kept staring at the door as if he could see through it. "Clara," he murmured, and the use of her first name confirmed that the truth had finally hit. She was no longer Dr. Mendez. She was Clara, the woman he had abandoned 8 years ago. "Oh my God, it's you." She remained silent, allowing the realization to hit him completely. They are—" He couldn't finish the sentence. "Yours?" "Yes, Leo. They're your children." The words hung in the air like storm clouds. His face transformed into a mask of shock, disbelief, and then anger. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" His voice rose. 8 years, Clara, 8 years. She felt her own rage welling up, fueled by years of solitary struggles, sleepless nights, and difficult explanations to her children. "Tell you? You disappeared from my life without looking back. You changed your number, you moved, you cut off all contact. How was I supposed to tell you? You could have tried. My family was well known. You could have found me. After what you accused me of, after you called me a liar, a cheater." Tears began to burn in Clara's eyes. "You didn't even give me a chance to explain, Leo. You judged me, you condemned me, and you disappeared. Why would I go after someone who treated me like that?" He ran his hand through his hair, a gesture she knew well, a sign of his frustration. "I saw the messages, Clara. I saw the pictures. You were with him, with Ricardo while we were together." "Fake messages," she exclaimed, fighting to keep her voice low. "Manipulated photos. There was never anything between Ricardo and me. He was just a friend from college. The messages were on your phone. Jessica showed them to me." The mention of that name felt like a slap in the face to Clara. Jessica Sterling, your best friend at the time. The person who knew all your passwords, who had access to your phone, who had always looked at Leo with those greedy eyes. "Jessica," she repeated, comprehension finally dawning on her mind like a bolt of lightning. "Of course, Jessica." Leo frowned, confused by her reaction. "What about Jessica? She was my best friend, Clara. She knew all my passwords. She had access to my phone constantly. What are you insinuating?" "I'm not insinuating anything. I'm stating. Jessica framed us. She was always in love with you since our college days. When she found out you were going to propose to me—" "How did you know that?" he interrupted, surprised. "Because you told her!" Clara exclaimed, exasperated. "You asked for her opinion on the ring, remember? And she came running to tell me, feigning joy, when in reality she was scheming." Leo's expression slowly changed, as if the pieces of a puzzle were falling into place. "Are you saying that Jessica forged those messages, those photos?" "I'm saying that I never betrayed you, that I was the victim of a ruse, and that when I found out I was pregnant, I tried to find you desperately, but you had already vanished." Leo sank into the chair, still holding Aurora, who was sleeping, oblivious to the drama unfolding. His face was a mixture of emotions, anger, confusion, pain, and finally, a terrible understanding. "My God," he murmured. "All this time." The silence returned to the room, heavy with 8 years of pain, resentment, and lost opportunities. "I need to know them," he finally said with renewed determination. "They're my children, Clara. I have a right." "A right?" The word ignited a new wave of indignation in her. "A right? What about their right to have a present father? Where was that right for the last 8 years? For birthdays? For nights with a fever? For school presentations? That's not fair. I didn't know. And now you want to walk into their lives as if nothing happened." Clara shook her head. "It's not that simple, Leo. They're children, not property you can claim when it's convenient." His expression hardened. "I'm going to legally recognize them, give them my last name, my financial support." "Money?" Clara almost laughed, but it was a bitter sound. "Do you think that's what they need? "We don't need your money, Leo. We've done just fine until now." "That's evident," he replied, looking around the small clinic. "This place, the neighborhood where I saw them, they're clearly getting everything they deserve." The comment hit Clara like a slap. She straightened her shoulders, her green eyes flashing with fury. "Get out," she ordered in a low but firm voice. "Get out now!" "Clara, I didn't mean to." "Get out before I say something I can't take back. I'm not going to discuss my children's lives with you here, like this, in the heat of the moment." He got up, still holding Aurora, his expression a mixture of regret and determination. "This isn't over, Clara. We're going to talk. When we're both calmer. But I want you to know, I'm going to be a part of their lives, one way or another." With those words, he left, leaving Clara trembling with rage and fear. When the door closed, she sank into the chair, finally allowing the tears to flow freely. Leo drove through the city with his mind in a whirlwind. Aurora slept in the passenger seat, oblivious to the emotional chaos of her new owner. He had canceled all his afternoon meetings, unable to concentrate on anything after the bombshell revelation. Children. He had children. 2. Twins. A boy and a girl with his eyes, his hair, his chin. Children who grew up without knowing him, without knowing who he was. Perfect creatures he never saw born, never saw take their first steps, never heard call him Dad. And Clara. Clara, whom he had loved with a painful intensity. Clara, whom he had believed had betrayed his trust. Clara, who was now a different woman. Stronger, tougher, with a protective fire in her eyes that didn't exist in the 20-year-old he had known. Could she have been telling the truth about Jessica? The idea was too disturbing to contemplate. Jessica, his fiancée. The woman he was about to marry. Could she have been capable of such a sordid manipulation? Of destroying 2 lives, 2 families, out of jealousy? His cell phone rang. It was her, as if she had been summoned by his thoughts. "Alex, where are you? Did you cancel the meeting with the Arabs? What happened?" "Jessica!" His voice came out raspy. "We need to talk." "Of course, darling. I'm at the bridal shop. Do you want me to stop by the office?" "No, I'm going home now. I'll see you there in an hour." He hung up before she could respond. He needed time to organize his thoughts, to decide how to approach the matter. If Clara was right, if Jessica had really forged those proofs of betrayal, it meant that the last 8 years of his life had been built on a lie. Upon arriving home, he placed Aurora in her basket and poured himself a double whiskey. He felt numb, as if he were living a bizarre dream. He walked to his study and opened the drawer where he kept old documents. At the bottom, hidden in a folder, was a photo. The only one he had kept of Clara, taken on a beach trip. Her red hair waving in the wind, her luminous smile, her green eyes shining with love. Why had he kept that photo all these years? Why hadn't he been able to get rid of it, even believing he had been betrayed? The doorbell rang, interrupting his reflections. Jessica had arrived earlier than expected. Taking a deep breath, Leo put the photo away and went to the door. Jessica entered like a whirlwind, talking quickly about the wedding preparations. "Alex, darling, you're not going to believe it. I found the perfect dress, and the decorator suggested a theme that will leave everyone speechless. I'm thinking of..." She stopped when she noticed his somber expression. "What's wrong? Did something happen?" Leo looked at her with new eyes. Jessica Sterling, with her impeccable black hair, perfect makeup, designer clothes. The woman he was about to marry. The woman who had possibly ruined his life. "I ran into Clara today," he said bluntly, watching her reaction carefully. Jessica's face visibly paled. It was only for an instant, then replaced by a look of forced confusion. But Leo caught it. "Clara? What Clara?" "You know exactly who I'm talking about, Jessica. Clara Mendez, your old best friend. Jessica sat on the sofa, nervously adjusting the strap of her designer purse. Oh, that Clara. Gosh, I haven't thought about her in years. How is she? The forced casualness was so transparent that Leo almost laughed. She's fine. She's a veterinarian now. She has a small clinic in the Lower East Side. But the most interesting thing was meeting her children. Jessica swallowed hard, her discomfort now evident. She has children? Well, good for her. I didn't know she got married. She didn't get married, Leo replied, approaching her slowly. They're twins. They're 8 years old. 8 years? Jessica's voice faltered. What a coincidence. That was about when we lost touch. Exactly when we lost touch, Jessica. Exactly when you showed me alleged messages and photos that proved she was cheating on me. He was now in front of her, his eyes fixed on hers. Exactly when I broke up with her and disappeared from her life. Jessica stood up abruptly, backing away. I don't know what she told you, Alex, but she didn't need to say anything. His voice rose. All I had to do was look at the children. They're my spitting image, Jessica. They have my eyes, my hair, my chin. They're my children. The silence that followed was deafening. Jessica looked like a statue, her eyes wide with panic. Alex, you're confused. You can't be sure that— Stop lying, he roared, slamming his fist on the table, making her jump. 8 years, Jessica. You stole 8 years of my life, of my children's lives. Tears began to run down her perfectly made-up face. I loved you, she murmured, her voice trembling. I always loved you since we were teenagers, but you only had eyes for her. I knew you were going to propose to her. I knew I would lose you forever. So you decided it was better for me to lose her, to lose my children, to live a lie with you? Jessica moved forward, trying to hold his hands. We built something real, Alex, in all these years. What we have is true. He backed away, looking at her as if she were a stranger. True? It was built on the biggest lie I've ever heard. You destroyed 3 lives. Mine, hers, children's. Alex, please, can we talk about this? Can I explain? I was young. I was desperate. There's no explanation for what you did. He cut in, his voice now cold as ice. I want you to get out of my house, now. You can't be serious. Our wedding, the preparations. It's over, Jessica. There will be no wedding. She faced him, her face transformed by shock and anger. It's because of her, isn't it? Do you think you can just go back to her after all this time? That she'll welcome you back with open arms? She hates you, Alex, for 8 years of raising your children alone. The words hit Leo like daggers, because they contained an undeniable truth. What would he do now? How would he repair the damage done? How would he become a part of his children's lives, of Clara's life, after so much time? Get out, he repeated, opening the door. I don't want to see you again. Jessica grabbed her purse, the tears now replaced by a mask of fury. You'll regret this, Alex. No one humiliates me like this. When the door closed behind her, Leo felt as if a weight had been lifted from his shoulders, only to be replaced by another, even heavier one. The weight of responsibility for the lost years, for the lives he had inadvertently helped to disrupt. He grabbed his phone, determined. He needed to talk to Clara again. He needed to meet his children, really meet them, and somehow find a way to repair what had been broken. Clara was putting the twins to bed, trying to maintain the normal routine despite the internal turmoil. They had asked about the man with the white puppy, noticing his resemblance to that, but she had deflected the topic, promising to talk about it another day. Now, sitting on the edge of Ellie's bed, she stroked her daughter's blonde hair as the little girl hugged Luna. Mom, Ellie murmured, already sleepy. That man looked like us, didn't he? Clara's heart stopped. The children were too observant for their own good. A little, maybe, she replied cautiously. He has the same eyes as Leo, the little girl continued, and the same hair as me. Coincidences happen, my love. Mrs. Chayo says coincidences are God's way of staying anonymous, Ellie commented, with that unexpected wisdom that sometimes came out. Do you think it was God who sent him to bring Aurora to your clinic? Clara kissed her daughter's forehead, swallowing the lump in her throat. Sleep, little philosopher. We'll talk more tomorrow. When the children finally fell asleep, Clara allowed herself to collapse onto the small living room sofa. The confrontation with Leo had opened wounds she thought had healed. The truth about Jessica, now obvious, had brought a renewed anger, but also a deep sadness for the lost time, for the possibilities that never came to be. Her phone vibrated. A message from an unknown number. Clara, we need to talk. Please, for our children. Leo. She stared at the screen for long minutes, her heart torn between anger, fear, and a small, treacherous spark of hope that refused to die. Completely. Across town, Leo was also staring at his phone, waiting for a response that could change everything. Aurora was sleeping peacefully beside him, a small creature that, without knowing it, had become the catalyst for a revelation that would forever shake the foundations of his world. In two different worlds, separated by miles of asphalt and years of pain, two hearts beat in sync for the first time in a long time, united by the invisible bond of the small beings they had created together, even if they were apart. And under the same New York City night sky, Ellie and Leo slept soundly, oblivious to the storm brewing around them. A storm that would bring destruction, but also the possibility of a new beginning. The rain fell in dense curtains over New York City when Clara parked her compact car in front of the coffee shop Leo had chosen. It was a discreet place, away from the downtown core, where they wouldn't risk running into acquaintances. After 3 days of exchanging messages, they agreed they needed to talk civilly, away from the children and the charged atmosphere of the clinic. Taking a deep breath, Clara looked at her own reflection in the rearview mirror. She had chosen a simple but elegant outfit, dark jeans, an emerald green blouse that highlighted her eyes, and her red hair in a casual bun. She hated herself for still caring about the impression she would make on him. The coffee shop had a cozy atmosphere, with warm yellow lights and dark wooden tables. Leo was already there, sitting in a secluded corner, looking out the window. He had ordered 2 coffees, she noticed, as she approached. He still remembered how she liked hers, with a touch of cinnamon. "Thank you for coming," he said. Standing up when he saw her, Clara just nodded, sitting down. The initial silence was awkward, laden with unspoken words and years of absence. "How are they?" Leo finally asked. Breaking the ice. "They're fine. Curious. They asked a lot of questions about you." A sad smile crossed his face. "About the man with the white puppy who looks like them." "They're observant," Clara confirmed. "They always have been," he said, "especially Leo. Nothing gets past those eyes." "My eyes," Leo murmured, almost to himself. Yes, your eyes." Another silence, less tense than the first. "What did you tell them?" he asked hesitantly. Clara sighed. "The truth. A simplified version, appropriate for 8-year-olds. I said you're their father, that we met in college and fell in love, but then separated due to a misunderstanding, that you didn't know about them until now." How did they react? How would you expect? Surprise, confusion, a lot of questions. Leo was quieter, processing. Ellie cried a little, then got excited about the idea of having a dad like the other kids. Leo swallowed, visibly moved. "I want to know them, Clara. Formally. Not as the stranger from the clinic, but as their father." The word came out with uncertainty, as if he were still testing its taste. Clara studied him intently. The man across from her was no longer the impetuous young man she had known in college. There were new lines on his face, a sobriety in his eyes, that spoke of experiences and pain. "Leo, I need to be clear. I can't just throw them into your life, or you into theirs. Children aren't objects that can be transferred from one place to another. They have feelings, insecurities, fears. I know. He nodded, surprising her with his serenity. I don't expect to instantly assume the role of a father. I know I need to earn that right, to earn their trust, and yours. Something in the way he said the last part made Clara's heart race, but she pushed the feeling away. It's not about me, she replied, keeping her voice steady. It's about Ellie and Leo. It's about all of us, Clara. Be honest. 8 years of resentment don't disappear overnight. I need good to win back your trust as much as theirs. She didn't answer right away, taking another sip of coffee. How's Aurora? She asked, changing the subject. A genuine smile lit up his face. Surprisingly well. Her paw is almost healed. She's already running around the apartment as if she owns the place. The kids would love to see her. That would be a good start, wouldn't it? A visit to see Aurora. Clara nodded slowly. Maybe. A neutral environment? A park, maybe, where they can interact without pressure. And Jessica? The question escaped her before she could contain it. Leo's expression hardened. I broke off the engagement. She denied it at first, then confessed everything when confronted with the evidence of the twins. I haven't seen her since. I'm sorry, Clara said, surprising herself with the sincerity of the statement. Don't be sorry. It was like waking up from an 8-year nightmare, realizing I was about to marry someone capable of that kind of manipulation. He didn't finish the sentence, but he didn't need to. The silence between them was different now, no longer laden with unspoken accusations, but with a mutual understanding of shared wounds. Sunday, Clara finally said. Central Park at 10 in the morning. The kids like the lake, and Aurora can run around there without any problems. Leo's face lit up with barely contained hope. I'll be there. In the following weeks, a routine was established. Sunday meetings in the park, always supervised by Clara. Slowly, Leo began to earn the children's trust, and, reluctantly, Clara's too. He never overstepped the boundaries she set. He always asked for permission before suggesting activities. He never criticized Clara's parenting decisions. Every gift for the children was carefully thought out, meaningful, but never extravagant, respecting the values Clara had taught them. It was in the middle of the second month of this new dynamic that Ellie asked the question that would change everything. Why don't you come over for dinner at our place, Dad? My mom makes really good lasagna. The term dad, used for the first time by one of the twins, hit Leo like a wave. His eyes instantly welled up, and he needed a moment to compose himself. That depends on your mom, Ellie, he replied, looking at Clara with a mixture of hope and caution. Clara hesitated. A meeting at home would be a huge step. It would make everything more real, more intimate. But the joy on Ellie's face, the expectation even in Leo's usually cautious eyes, how could she say no? Friday, she finally said. At 7, nothing too formal. Leo's smile was worth the risk. It was during the third month of this new dynamic when the storm hit. Clara was seeing the last clients of the day when Rosa, her receptionist, entered the room with an alarmed expression. Doctor, there's a woman out there insisting on seeing you. She seems agitated. Before Clara could respond, the door was violently pushed open, and Jessica Sterling entered like a whirlwind. She looked visibly different from the neat image Clara held in her memory. Disheveled hair, deep dark circles under her eyes, wrinkled clothes. You! She shrieked, pointing an accusing finger at Clara. You destroyed my life! Rosa ran to call security, while Clara tried to remain calm, aware of the frightened puppy that was still on the examination table. Jessica, this is a place of work. There are animals here that need peace and quiet. As if you cared about peace and quiet when you stole my fiancé, Jessica continued, her voice high and unstable. 8 years, Clara. 8 years of building a life with him. And you reappear with your bastards and destroy everything. The mention of her children ignited something in Clara. A protective fury that overcame any fear. "Never refer to my children that way again," she said, her voice dangerously low. "And as for stealing your fiancé, maybe you should remember who stole whom first. Who forged messages, manipulated photos, destroyed a relationship out of pure envy?" Jessica laughed, a hysterical sound that made Clara's skin crawl. "It worked, didn't it? For 8 wonderful years it worked. He was mine. We had a life." "A life built on lies," Clara replied, keeping her distance. "How could it last? It was working until you reappeared with those children, those damn twins with his eyes." The door opened again, and 2 security guards from the building entered, followed by Rosa. "This woman is causing a disturbance," Clara informed them. "Please, escort her out." "This isn't over," Jessica yelled as she was led away. "You'll regret this, both of you!" Immediately, Clara called Leo, telling him about the incident. He was visibly alarmed and promised to send a security guard to monitor the clinic and her apartment until the situation was resolved. 2 days later, Clara's fear came true in the worst possible way. When she went to pick up the children from school, she discovered that Ellie wasn't there. According to the teacher, a woman who identified herself as an aunt had picked up the girl earlier, claiming a family emergency. Clara's world fell apart. In a panic, she called Leo, who immediately left an important meeting upon hearing the news. In less than an hour, he mobilized a team of private security guards, activated contacts in the police, and began a frantic search. Leo, scared and confused, clung to his mom while Clara struggled to maintain her composure for the boy. "We're going to find her," she repeated, more to herself than to the child. "We're going to bring your sister back." Thanks to security cameras and Leo's contacts, they soon discovered that Jessica had taken Ellie to a secluded ranch outside the city, owned by a cousin of hers. The rescue operation was coordinated between the police and Leo's private team. Clara insisted on accompanying them, leaving Leo in the care of Mrs. Chayo, who was crying and praying at the same time. Upon arriving at the ranch, Leo convinced the police to allow him and Clara to approach first, hoping to resolve the situation peacefully, since Jessica was clearly unstable. When the door to the house opened, the scene they found paralyzed them both. Jessica, looking even more disheveled, smiled in an unsettling way. Beside her, Ellie was sitting on the sofa, scared but physically unharmed. "Mom!" the little girl cried upon seeing Clara, trying to run to her, but Jessica held her arm. "Not yet, darling. We're preparing a surprise for Dad, remember?" It was evident that Jessica was in a psychotic state, living a fantasy where Ellie was her and Leo's daughter. "Jessica," Leo began calmly, moving forward slowly. "Why don't you let Ellie go with her mom? We can talk, just the 2 of us, like you wanted." "Her mom?" Jessica laughed, a hollow sound. No, we're starting a family now, Alex. You, me, and our daughter. Isn't she beautiful? She has your eyes." As she spoke, her hand moved toward her coat pocket. Leo saw the movement and took a decisive step forward. "Jessica, you need help. Let us help you." With a scream, Jessica pulled out a small gun. "No one is taking her away. No one is going to destroy our family." It all happened in seconds. Leo lunged forward, shielding Clara and reaching Ellie in the same motion. The gun fired, the deafening sound filling the air. Police officers burst into the house, subduing Jessica, who was screaming incoherently. When the dust settled, Clara was hugging Ellie tightly, frantically checking to see if her daughter was hurt. It was then that she noticed Leo, who had fallen to the floor, a red stain spreading on his shirt. "Leo!" she screamed, the world seeming to slow down around her. He smiled weakly. "I'm okay. Just a scratch on my arm." She missed. Paramedics rushed in, confirming that the wound was superficial. The bullet had only grazed his arm. Jessica was taken, restrained and sedated, directly to a psychiatric clinic. 3 months passed since the incident. Life had found new rhythms, new configurations. Leo had bought a house in the same neighborhood, just a few minutes from Clara's apartment, allowing the children to transition easily between the two homes. That Sunday afternoon, the family had gathered in the spacious garden of the new house. Leo and Leo were building a telescope they had bought together. Ellie was running on the lawn with Aurora, Kit Kat, and Luna, all apparently involved in some complex game. Clara watched them from the deck, a sense of peace she hadn't felt in years filling her chest. "What are you thinking about?" Leo's voice brought her back to the present. "How life comes full circle," she replied, smiling. "How we got here after everything." He nodded, understanding perfectly. "You know what Leo asked me yesterday?" Leo said, with a playful smile on his lips. "What? When are you going to stop pretending you don't want to kiss my mom?" Clara choked. Blushing intensely. "He didn't say that?" "Yes, he did," Leo confirmed, laughing. His exact words were, "Dad, why do you look at my mom that way when you think no one's watching, but you never do anything?" "And what did you say?" she asked, her heart racing. "I said some things can't be rushed, that sometimes, when something is really important, it's worth waiting for the perfect moment." Their eyes met, and Clara felt the world around them slow down. In recent months, they had rebuilt trust, friendship, and established effective co-parenting. But that final barrier, the romantic reconnection, had remained intact. "And when would that perfect moment be?" she asked, her voice almost a whisper. He approached her slowly, giving her all the time to back away if she wanted to. "Maybe now," he replied, his eyes fixed on hers. "I want to," she replied simply. When their lips met, it was like coming home after a long journey, familiar and new at the same time, heavy with the weight of a shared history and the promise of a future yet to be written. Finally, Ellie's voice broke the moment, followed by children's laughter. "Leo, you owe me $5. I said it would be today." They separated, laughing along with the children, who were now celebrating as if they had witnessed the perfect ending to their favorite movie. "Were you two betting?" Leo asked, feigning indignation. "It was Leo's idea," Ellie defended quickly. "Traitor," her brother mumbled, but he was smiling widely. A year later, in a simple ceremony in the garden of their house, Clara and Leo exchanged vows under an arch of flowers. Ellie scattered petals along the path. Leo, solemn, carried the rings. Aurora, now a healthy adult, accompanied the twins with a white bow on her collar. When the officiant asked if anyone had anything to say before the exchange of rings, Ellie stepped forward. "I wanted to say something," she announced confidently. "Before, I thought family was just who lived in the same house. But now I know family is who stays together, even when everything is difficult. Also," Leo continued, joining his sister, "we wanted to thank Aurora. Without her, Dad might never have found us." Aurora, as if she understood, barked once, making everyone laugh. When they finally exchanged rings, it wasn't just a couple officially uniting, but a family completing a journey of rebuilding, made of losses and gains, pain and joy, separation and reunion. Years later, the small vet clinic was transformed into a large rehabilitation and adoption center for abandoned animals. Aurora's new beginnings became a national benchmark, a legacy built by Clara and Leo, living proof that sometimes love just needs a chance to start over.